Hi, my name is Radovan Gregor and I'm here to present the Gregor Information theory, which deals with the mind upgrade. In this video, we'll focus on brain activity. So let's begin with some known facts. We start by saying that the brain activity is divided into subconscious and conscious part, which is a known fact since around 1900 when psychologists discovered that underneath the layers of critical thought functions of the conscious mind lay a powerful awareness that they call the subconscious mind. If you have ever driven home without remembering the actual journey, it's probably because you've driven on the very same road a few times before already. And your brain completely remembers the journey without you having to think about it. Some scientists explain that the subconscious mind is what conducts autopilot thinking. For example, during the day when our conscious mind switches off. So does subconsciousness refer to the state of not being conscious? I'm sure the answer is no. Our mind does not switch off. We are aware of our surrounding all the time when we are awake. Even when we don't think about it actively by consciousness, we process information. We receive sensory impulses and react to them, but the difference is that we do not create new information or new thoughts. Another example is the subconscious mind guides every reaction that seems impulsive or sudden. When something occurs that requires a quick response, in this situation, we don't have time to think, make new decisions, but we recycle some behavior from the past. So why is this happening? Brain is a tool. It needs energy, and creating new ideas is more challenging. It consumes more energy than just simply using an idea that has already been created and is stored. So what is the role of subconsciousness if we look at it through information? First, we have to realize we need to look at the brain as a whole, as one system. This main system creates, stores, and recycles information we call thoughts. But the system is made up of two subsystems that cooperate together. Both subsystems have specific role in processing information, which means these two systems must be treated separately and as one system at the same time. Let's start with the conscious part. It is responsible for creating new information. In later videos, we will go more deeply into explaining what information really is. For now, let's just suppose it is some form of naming the various physical phenomena around us. Everything we perceive through our senses must be given a name so we can think about it later. At the beginning, when we are just children, our memory is empty. It's a clear plate and no object around us has a name. We have to invent it first. We have to invest some time and energy into the thinking process. The name is added to the image and together they form information. This information must be stored. The process of grouping these two together or creating new information is taking place in conscious part of the mind. We will call it the creation process. The creation process is highly energy consuming. Intense brain activity is required to create new thought. But when we create a thought or information, the process is not finished yet. We are part of space-time continuum, which means that as time goes on, we change our position in space and thus constantly receive new inputs or signals that needs to be evaluated or named. All these new information are stored in what we call memory. So the process of naming objects continues. It is repeated over and over. Therefore, the number of memory elements increases in time. Now let's move on to the second subsystem, which is subconsciousness. It cooperates with memory. It activates stored information. The process of activation is faster than the process of creation and storing. We can think about it as information recycling, which means we use an old information without the notion of having to create it again. Instead of creation process, we now have activation process. It requires less brain activity and needs less energy. Imagine that we see an object that we have named in the past. The information connected to this physical phenomena is already stored in our memory and we have access to it. So the question is, do we have to create it or just activate it? The answer is ambiguous. Sometimes we have to create it again because over the time the physical characteristics of the object might change, and thus we have to update the information as well. That means we need to change the information that has been stored. We have to think or use the creation process again for the same object. But sometimes we don't have to change anything and just activate the old information. We use so-called activation process. And as we mentioned before, recycling is much faster. So it takes place in situations that need fast reactions. So this means that subconsciousness is really just some sort of autopilot. Remember, we said both subsystems work together. They cooperate. They are part of one mind. This means subconsciousness is involved in other processes as well. It is in some way responsible for creating also the new information. We said it is the creative process that forms new information. But we have to realize that activation process is also present. Its task is to provide information that will be included in the thinking process. The subconsciousness thus creates some sort of framework in which a new idea is built. It defines boundaries and limits within which consciousness can operate when creating this new information. So we see that consciousness can move only in information space allowed by the subconsciousness. Anything you think of now will in the future have effect on your ability to create new thoughts or information. It will influence what you will think next. So part of your future is being formed right now. What we have learned today is that subconsciousness is responsible for what thoughts we are able to generate through consciousness. Thanks for watching this video. See you next time. Bye.